Okay. Hello, YouTube. Greetings. We're a bit late. We've had some technical problems. We've already recorded one section of the show, but we'll carry on with the rest of the show. And we have a very welcome guest with us today, Mr. Andrew Bennett. And Andrew will be staying with us for, hopefully, for the next two segments, or next two episodes, as really we should get round to calling them.
Moira,
yes.
To interrupt you, I'm listeners and viewers, I'm Paul O'Mahony. I'm one of the co-presenters, but I need to pay a little attention to my cat who came in here looking for food. So if you can talk among yourselves for a minute, I will be back. I just, you know what cats are like. It's impossible to deny them food. Otherwise, they threaten to eat you. So I'll be back in, it'll only take me a minute to...
Okay, Paul, just leave your camera on. And there we are. We've lost Paul for a few minutes. So, Andrew.
We can't have Paul devoured by a cat.
We can't, no.
Sorry, we can't.
The way the show normally works is in our first segment, we have a word of the week and a thought for the week. And we'll be obviously coming back to that later. And in part two is our interview. Part three, Paul takes charge of, and it varies, but he's generally talking about administrative and Toastmasters, not what I like to talk about, which is ways that you can improve your speaking and your listening and your performance, to use that horrible word, skills. But I stopped at last December. I finished at the end of December because I just ran out of new things to talk about. After 5 years of almost weekly, pretty well, 40 to 45 shows a year, you tend to run out of subjects.
That's a lot of episodes.
It is. I just wish I'd had them all video recorded, because I have a project to put the audio at least up onto YouTube for a lot of those episodes.
He's eating celery stick now. Paul, you didn't feed celery to the cat, did you?
Well, Paul is currently muted and off screen. I think we'll leave him there, don't you?
My voice coach advised me to eat celery before podcasting. So I've found that it refreshes the parts of the brain that are still asleep.
Okay, Paul, let's get on with the next part of the show. So, just make sure this is working, and it's not. Why is it not working? Right, I had all this nicely set up, as of course one should do, before the show, and then I had to
happens every week, Andrew.
Well, no, I don't.
Yes,
it's not rebooting the computer completely, starting from scratch.
If it isn't rebooting the computer, it's rebooting your dog, or.
Oh no, you're being most unkind to the dog.
Okay, well, I'm ready to go anyway.
Yeah.
I may be in the middle of you on the screen, but I'm not getting in the middle of this discussion.
No, that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so, what have I done now? No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I have to click a button which says keep the meeting meeting on top. Here we go. And then everything is fine. Right. Let's give a little bit of I can go back to recording locally now, can't I, as well? Right, we're on section 3. Are we not? No, we're on section 4, Paul. So we are re-interviewing Andrew in a more wide-ranging and whatever. However it goes. Welcome back, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters listeners and friends. You are most welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers once again. This is our 4th show this week, and I'm delighted to welcome back our guest of the week, Mr. Andrew Bennett, and of course Paul O'Mahony. And Paul, I know, has some questions that he particularly wants to put to Andrew. So I'm going to hand over to Paul now. Paul, the stage is yours.
Distinguished Toastmaster Andrew Bennett, it's an absolute pleasure to get you here on the Talk Show for Talkers for a short while. And a couple of days ago, I was thrilled to hear you mention that you used in a previous life to be an opera singer. But I'm going to resist the temptation to do that and ask you, where on earth do you live, Andrew?
Where on earth do I live? I live just on the southeastern edge of London. I practically live in Kent, actually. So I'm southeast London, yes.
Now, I remember you saying that you're a member of Berkeley Square Toastmasters. So will you tell me, how on earth do you get from the edge of Kent to Berkeley Square Toastmasters in time for their meetings? So when does Berkeley Square Toastmasters meet, and how does Andrew Bennett get there?
Well, Berkeley Square Toastmasters is currently meeting online, as all the clubs have been during the pandemic. So I haven't actually been back to the venue yet. The club meets at the Lansdowne Club. It's also been meeting at the Royal Overseas League recently, which had the possibility of putting in place the necessary COVID rules. But basically, we've been meeting as an online club since the pandemic. But normally I would take the train. I would need to take the train from my station, which is Barnhurst, up into central London, and then get the tube over to Green Park. However, I don't do that, you see, Paul, because I had a bit of an accident and I have a bit of mobility issues. So I don't do that, but I'm very glad to join in with the meeting online.
Ah, right. So you're a member of 5 clubs and you attend Berkeley Square online. Well, we better find out what other clubs. By the way, I just have to tell you that 3/4 of our listeners haven't a clue where Kent is, haven't a clue where the Lansdowne Club is. But I can tell you, listeners, that it is one hairy journey to come in from Kent. And that's what puzzled me, all the way into not just central London, but head out a bit west. So anyway, we won't go there. But Andrew, what are the other clubs you're a member of? And tell me why, in relation to each of them, did you join them?
So I am a member of Experienced French Toastmasters. That's our bilingual club, which was based in London. Why am I a member of Experienced French Toastmasters? Because the 2 gentlemen who wanted to set the club up, Raphael Sadikas and Raphael Kopel, came and found me and asked me to be mentor of the club. That was some years ago now. So I went in as a founder member mentor. I had some other things to do for a few years, but I've recently come back to that club to give a bit more input into Experienced French Toastmasters.
So before you go away from the French, are you aiming to improve your impromptu speaking in French? That's one question. Or are you in the club there to impart, give back, be a contributor to people in the club who would value your support? Yeah, what are you doing in that club?
What am I doing in that club? Well, I enjoy going along because I enjoy speaking French. I lived in France for many years. I lived in the west of France. I lived in Nantes. I lived in Nice. And then for a number of years, I was going backwards and forwards to Paris because my agent was in Paris. So I was going backwards and forwards to Paris to rehearsals. So France is a very big and important thing for me as a country. And so I just like to be able to practice my French language.
Well, we'll do that now. Well, we'll do that now. I'll ask you in English and you'll answer me in French.
Okay.
So, Andrew, have you ever performed live on stage in Paris in one of the operas? And if so, where and which opera, please?
Oh là là, mais bien sûr, maintes fois, au Théâtre des Champs-Élysées, dans le Guillaume Tell, dans la Cenerentola, aussi dans beaucoup de concerts, la Cité de la Musique, plein des concerts. Oui, j'ai travaillé énormément à Paris, j'ai chanté beaucoup à Paris.
Oui. And t'es ténor, n'est-ce pas?
Oui.
Je comprends tout seul.
Okay, so look, that's great. I just thought, look, we got to get a bit of French in. We don't usually get this in. So, okay, that's enough about that club.
Incidentally, Paul, just to say something, I've never actually given this singing thing up, you know. I may have had an accident and been a bit stopped in my tracks, but once the pandemic's over, I've got concerts and things to do. So I haven't chucked it all in.
Well, we'll put your website for listening to you in concert, probably at the Wigmore Hall, excuse the in-joke, um, and on our website. But Andrew, carry on. From the French club.
So there are other clubs, Paul. There are other clubs. There are other clubs. Firebirds Collective, which is an advanced club I became a member of through Ken Essian, who was a Toastmaster that I knew in London. In fact, the time I joined Firebirds, we weren't in pandemic yet. We weren't all online. But he said to me, hey, what are you doing with your Toastmasters these days? Why don't you come to this really good club, Firebirds Collective? So I did. I went along and joined up with that one. I'm in digital communicators.
Wait a minute. You haven't said, what are you doing in Firebirds?
What am I doing in Firebirds?
You play
I'm having a whale of a
committee?
time. I'm having a whale of a time. I hear great speakers. I hear we have fantastic after parties. In fact, the subjects that are discussed in after party, as you well know, Paul, as you well know, the subjects of the after parties can be really as much fun as the meetings, I think. So it's a good place to be.
And are those after parties an opportunity for you to practice your impromptu speaking skills?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I don't think of it that way. I just think of it as having a good exchange with my Toastmaster friends when I'm sitting here online. But yes, it's great for practicing the impromptu skills. Of course, yeah. I love to encourage people to practice the impromptu skills. You know, I'm a district table topic winner this year, and I pursued that a little bit. That was quite an interesting thing. One of my other clubs I haven't mentioned yet, Paul, here comes another one. Are you ready? This is Excalibur Advanced Speakers, which was at one time the only advanced club of London. It's a club with a very distinguished and ancient history, if I dare say it. And it's a very fine club. And I love Excalibur. And somebody in Excalibur, one of my Toastmaster pals, Nick Westall, he said to me, what are you going to do with your Toastmasters this year? Now you're back with us and we're online. And I said, well, I don't know. I quite fancy having a go at the table topics contest because I've not really done that before. In the past, I'd done other contests, but not the table topics. Yeah, I quite fancy that. So when it came to the time, I signed up. You always got to sign up, haven't you? You always got to participate. So I signed up and wow, it took me all the way to a district title, which was amazing to me.
Tell me, what topic did they give you in the district final?
The district final topic was all about excessive or not. Basically, would you rather go for something that's massively excessive, or do you disapprove of something that's excessive? So it was you can either approve or disapprove type topic. Yes, I remember that. And I went, you can guess where I went, Paul.
Yes, do you have an excessive personality?
I don't think so. Do you know, I've got, people won't believe this when they're watching, will they? But I've actually got quite a quiet side. I've got quite a reserved side. And that's probably because when you're involved in performing arts, and you've done a lot of stage work, there's a lot of time when you do need to be quiet, when you do need to be reflective, and when you're focusing and centering in for the show you've got to deliver. So I've got both sides to my personality. You know, I love the sharing side, but I also like the quieter times as well. But yes, so I went hell for leather for the excessive, and there you are. It won me the title.
We've got Firebirds, we've got the the Anglo-French club that meets in London. We've got Excalibur. Give me the other two quickly.
We've done Berkeley Square.
Oh, we've done Berkeley Square, yes.
And the last one is the New Kid on the Block. And it's actually, most of my clubs are in District 91, but this one is in District 71. And that's the one called Digital Communicators.
Well, that's the one we want to know about, Andrew, because we are the District 71 podcast.
Yes. Well, so I saved it for you till last.
Yes, I wish we'd had that one first because we might never have got off it. So why did you join Digital Communicators, which I know something about because I remember that it was set up as a kind of advanced club in Manchester, and it had a sister or a brother club that was a good club to come into if you were a beginner. and you could graduate on to the Advanced Digital Communicator Club. But tell me, you're an opera singer or a classical singer. What on earth are you bothering with digital for?
Well, I think everybody needs to be involved in digital communication these days. Here we are online. It's all about learning the effective tools. How much did we all know about Zoom a year and a half ago? Most of us. How much did we know, really? How much have we discovered and learned? I mean, I know that folks like Maura, who's really very technically aware of things, she knew a lot of stuff in advance, no doubt.
Only because I had been a member of the club of Firebirds for what, 4 years then? That was the only reason why I was so technically up on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided that I would like to know more about the online format, the digital presentation. And that's how I ended up in Digital Communicators. Also, I knew the president, Nick Lacani, and I wanted to support him as he was chartering his new club. So I joined up and I found it really fascinating so far. People are experimenting with all sorts of formats, Prezi and all sorts of different formats, things that I didn't know anything about. But you learn, it's a public speaking version of opening a magician's box of tricks. That's what Digital Communicators is. And if I say that next Monday at the meeting, they'll love that. Remind me, I must say it.
Yeah, there are two more questions I want to ask you. One is, I want a really quick answer. Right. How much time do you spend on Toastmasters in 5 clubs on a typical week? Give me a rough figure for the number of hours in a week, and I can then multiply it by 52, can't I?
It depends on what I'm doing in the individual clubs, and they don't all meet weekly. But I would say on Toastmasters stuff, I might spend about 6 hours in my week overall. Maybe, okay. I mean, you've got the meetings as well. Maybe say 8 with the meetings. But I'm quite disciplined because I have other things that I do in my life.
Unfortunately, we haven't got time to go into all of those. I don't know. You might be a chef, for all I know. You might actually have a cat. Who knows? But the one other question I want to ask you then is, have you ever played a leadership role in a Toastmasters club? Have you ever been on a club committee?
Oh, yes. I've presided 2 clubs, and I've been what we used to call an area governor, an area director. Yes.
And tell me, last one then, I'm begging. Which title would you prefer, really, or do you prefer? An area director or an area governor? And there's only one right answer.
I think I used to like area governor, really. To be honest, if you want me to put my hand on my heart, and please don't shoot me down if I've got it wrong, but I think I preferred area governor as a title overall.
I think I agree with you too, yes.
Area director has, for me, an element that's very corporate, almost like to do with sales.
There you are, and
that's the way I hear it.
That's why you stopped performing on an opera stage, because operas have directors. I understand. And you
should know some of the ones that I've met. Yes.
And you don't go to the cinema because films have got directors. I can see, and you wish that films had film governors. And anyway, look, you clearly are a guy who like to be in charge of an island somewhere and be the island governor. Would that be to misjudge you? Would you like to be the governor of an island?
Well, it's a bit of a responsibility, isn't it? I'd love to have an island of my own that I could escape to with whoever I choose, and I could be the governor in that way. I'd love to have an island of my own, but I don't want to have too many people that I have to be responsible for on this island and have to run it all. You know, I enjoyed when I was leading in Toastmasters clubs. I enjoyed that a great deal because, you know, I had my committee and we had a great time together putting together projects, and I had 2 very good committees. So I was happy with that. But on an island, no, I want to have the time to sit back and enjoy it a bit. Once it's all working.
And your Toastmasters experience hasn't helped you to be an island governor and to be a leader of everything on the island? That's a disappointment, isn't it, Andrew?
I'm so sorry, Paul, but no. It could do if I wanted to use my Toastmaster experience that way. I'm sure that there are elements from my experience that I could draw on to do that. But it's just I don't want to do it, Paul. I've got other things I want to do in my life, and I do lead a lot of projects. So
what a distinguished man you are. What a distinguished voice. What a distinguished history. What a distinguished range of interests. Andrew Bennett, it has been a charming experience talking to you today. Thank you very, very much.
And thank you from me too. And that brings us to the end of this week's series of podcasts. Do tune in again next Friday at the same time, 4 p.m. And we'll have a whole new series of podcasts for you for next week. So bye for now.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been a joy.
That's part 4 done. Now we'll do part 3.
Yeah, you're okay.
Give us a chance to unwind, Andrew. How are you after that grilling?
I'm all right. I didn't know I didn't know which way to choose on that question.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
I chose with my heart.
Look,
Effect.
Besides, in shows we have producers. We do have the director in an opera house is the man who does the administration, or the musical director. You see, we have producers.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah.
I made a mistake there, Andrew. You were absolutely right.
I do think that all directors should go to Toastmasters. It would do them a lot of good.
Yes.
There are good and bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll crack on because Andrew only has about.
Look, I can manage until 4:15 if that's going to record it for you.
That would be
and then we've got it in
fabulous.
The can,
Yep. Yeah, it'll be wonderful.
Well finished by this.
And then I must be available in case anyone's having a nervous breakdown about their speech medal exam.
Yeah.
I try to see that they're all
How
happy.
did I do that? How did I do that? Oh, you silly cow. I do silly things sometimes. X marks the spot. Undo that. Sorry, I'm just...
Wait, Paul, I've never had a cat, but I did have a dog.
You never had a cat? You don't know what you're... Don't know what you're
But
missing.
it was a very cat-like dog because it was a pug.
Oh, they're horrible. Sorry, I mustn't
Pugs
say
are the
that.
most feline of dogs.
My son, one of my sons has a pug. She's a sweet enough dog, but I don't know. Pugs and me, I go for real dogs. Sorry.
Well, I've also had a lurcher in the past.
Really? Okay.
Yes, I had a lurcher.
Yeah.
He was a mixture of Italian Greyhound and Bedlington Terrier.
Yeah.
Woof.
Okay.
That's
Interesting mixture.
a dog that contests a lot. But there you go, I had that. What else do we have? We had a Zolo Quintal. Do you know about
what?
Zolo Quintals?
A solo
Naked
quintal?
dog.
Naked?
A naked dog. It just had fur on its head and its tail.
Oh,
South American dog.
that
Zolo Quintal.
really worries me.
Well, it's the way they're born. That's the way they are.
I know, but
Nothing unnatural.
it's just. Right, we're nearly finished messing about with the...
Pug was very special. It came on stage at the opera with me, Paul.
Really?
Really.
I took it on stage in Benjamin Britten, The Little Sweep. So there you are. It trotted around. It was kind of the dog of... It was an aristocratic household. It was the dog of the household. And it just, she just followed me all over. And she was wonderful. The kids loved her.
Yeah.
And she didn't fall in the pit, which is the thing that I was frightened of.
Wow.
She'd fall in the orchestra pit, but she never did.
That would be, yeah.
Got lots of applause. She got more applause than me, probably.
Of course.
Where did that opera? I've never seen it. Where did you perform?
I did that one in Opéra de Nantes in West France.
Right.
Tell
Which
me,
is a beautiful theatre. It's a theatre from Napoleonic times.
Andrew, are you a tenor?
Yes.
I guessed.
Moira,
yeah.
that was in the interview.
Was it?
You didn't.
Well, it just shows how much
But
I was
she's
paying
controlling
attention.
technical things. Have you seen our production of the Beggar's Opera, Moira?
I haven't. No.
I'll send you the thing again because it's still on YouTube, but you need to access it via the flyer.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Because it was fun, and of course it's all folk songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, the music is folk songs, traditional songs, French and English folk songs. So you probably quite enjoy it. And every single person in it is a Toastmaster.
Well, let me tell you something, Andrew. I started singing at the age of about 15. And I decided a couple of weeks ago that it was about time that I actually took singing lessons.
Why not?
Yeah. It's about time I actually learned how to sing instead of just singing.
Well,
anyway,
why not?
Let's.
Guys, I'm just worried about Andrew's
I'm all set up.
If you're relaxed, down, and happy, you can flow with this.
Okay. Welcome back, Toastmasters, to episode 3 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. I'm Moira O'Brien, and with me I have Mr. Paul O'Mahony and our guest this week, Mr. Andrew Bennett. And it's now the turn of Paul to talk about something which is, again, very appropriate for the time, and that is the training, or should I say the new training, for club officers. Paul, over to you.
Moira, correction. Sorry, maybe my guidance was wrong, but could you possibly, would it screw everything up if I said it was about the training of area directors?
It would just mean that I stop recording and we re-record.
Okay.
How about that?
Let me do area directors instead.
Okay, that just means I have to change everything, but you know me.
Yeah.
I'm
okay,
so
just
kind
hang on
to you.
1 second then. Hang on 1 second.
Of this week's Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. I'm Moira O'Brien, and with me I have Mr. Paul O'Mahony and our guest this week, Mr. Andrew Bennett. And it's now the turn of Paul to talk about something which is, again, very appropriate for the time. Okay, that'll do. Don't need to undo that. And how do you want it to be, the new or the Paul? What's your
yes.
official
There are 2 new elements in area director, in the training of area directors.
Okay. And that is the
2 new developments.
Sorry, I was restarting. No worries. Ooh, why did you do that? That's strange. Just appropriate for the time. Yeah, I was right. And that is the training of directors, or should I say the new training of directors. Paul, over to you.
Thank you, Maura. I'd like to talk to you listeners about the training in particular of area directors, because Toastmasters International has recently produced some guidelines for the future training of area directors. And these are brand new guidelines that affect the training of area directors this year for the first time. There are 2 parts of the new training for area directors that I'd like to focus on. And the first part is about the expectations that area directors have for the coming year. And there is some pre-work to be done by area directors before they go to a live training session. And the questions that area directors are invited to address are contained in a document, which is called Area Director Expectations Pre-Work. It's a PDF, and the time that it is recommended for an area director to take is between 30 and 60 minutes in relation to getting their head in order maybe their heart in order to, for going to experiential training. And I guess it'll be online experiential training in the first place, because our District 71 is beginning the training of area directors on, well, it will have done it by now, on the 26th of June. Here are the elements of the preparation. There is a district leadership handbook, which is not new, to be read, and there's a section in it related to area directors. There is a new video called Dashboards for Area Directors, which is available on YouTube. And there is another video called Dashboards for Club Officers, which is available on video. However, the most interesting part of it are the following questions, which area directors are invited to consider. The first one is, how would you explain your role to a member, to a club member? This is something that area directors will need to do, because most members of Toastmasters clubs don't have any idea what area director's role is, and in many cases haven't even heard that there is such a role as an area director, and in even more cases aren't even aware that there is such a thing as an area. So what a good question to start with. Why did you decide to be an area director? Well, there's a good one. Why did you decide? That's all about motivation, and that's a very important thing. What do you need to do during the year? What do you need to deliver? You're there in the role of helping the clubs to be successful, and by helping the clubs to be successful, also helping your area as a whole and your district as a whole to be successful. So there's a question here which says, what are the deliverables and when is it due? Going forward then, other questions like, what's the purpose of the area director's position? What skills or abilities will best serve you in succeeding in the position? When you complete your term as an area director, at what would you expect to be better? And who benefits an area director? And the final one, who will you ask for feedback on your performance, for help or clarification? There's a sample of pre-work that area directors are invited to do. And of course, remember, all volunteers like yourselves and area directors are being urged and persuaded to do these things in order to become as good at the role as they're able. And there's more things on the horizon. Well, more preparation. And one of the big things that area directors are expected to do is to visit every one of the clubs in their area at least twice during the year. And these, as you may or may not know, are called area director club visits. And there are a number of resources that have been produced in order to help the visit go as well as possible. And there are also some questions. So we're talking now about the area director's visit. And a big key thing that area directors need to know about and need to make sure that the clubs know about is the dashboard. And the first question here is, what challenges that clubs experience can be identified by reviewing the data in the dashboard? Where do you find the dashboard, listeners? You find it on the Toastmasters International website. How do you get into it? When you're an area director, you go in through legal, which pops up, and I won't go into what it's like when you get in there. Another question, review the membership orientation portion of the area director's club visit report. Now, this is a mouthful, isn't it? The membership orientation portion of the area director club visit. And that's really, how does the club treat its members? And on the report form, there's space for an area director to report on how the club treats its members. Other interesting questions include, how could you identify an issue with club officers not recognizing the value of training? How can you help emphasize the value of attending training? Listeners, in the old days, there was an attitude in Toastmasters clubs that I've been to, which said, oh, we need a minimum of 4 officers to go to training. Who's willing to go? Let's get these people to go off, and that's it. Now there are 7 officers in every Toastmasters club. And District 71 had a incentive program last year, and it'll continue this year, which encouraged clubs to have every single one of their club officers trained twice a year. 7 officers in the late summer, midsummer to late summer, has to be all finished by the end of August. And similarly, from just before Christmas till the end of February. So clearly you can see that area directors are being encouraged to think about how they can encourage club officers to go to the training. How can clubs track progress on their action plans in the club's success plan? Now, there's another thing for area directors to be aware of. It's not new. It's called a club success plan. There is also such a thing as an area success plan. This is for an area director to be very good at their job. They need to be able to help the clubs to track the progress on their action plans. There's another question. What's the value of the club success plan to the club? Question I have is, how many clubs in District 71 or even in District 91, which Andrew Bennett has been talking to us about, have got a club success plan and have dug out the Toastmasters International guidance on what a club success plan is and how to put one together? 2 more things just to mention. What resources can you send a club that's having trouble retaining members? Imagine there's a club that's hemorrhaging members. What can an area director do to help? Great question. And then looking at the dashboard, how would you prioritize which clubs to visit? There you are, you see. You can't visit, let's say, you need to visit the clubs that need you most as early as possible during the year, rather than just waiting until the year has got well off the starting blocks. Because the earlier you contact a club, the more useful you might be able to be to the club. And the last question, what would you expect to change in the dashboard information in the next 2 months? Now, there's a concrete one. Thinking ahead, because the area directors might be overwhelmed thinking about the whole year. So what would you expect to change in the first 2 months? That's July and August. So these are just 2 of the newest improvements to the effort to support area directors. There's a lot of work going on in Toastmasters International on the training of area directors and also the training of division directors. Actually, for that matter, the training of just about everybody. So there we are, a little summary of what area directors to think about. And I hope those of you who are members in a club and have never been an area director will be interested in what these area directors are doing and expected to do. Andrew, you have been an area director at one stage in your life. Were you ever asked to, given a resource which asked you to think in advance
I don't
about
believe
their
that a
expectations?
language will limit an emotion. So there's not a specific language to say something that comes from the heart. You can say something from the heart.
Hold on, I'll get rid of it.
Japanese, Indian, Italian, English. It doesn't matter as long as it's sincere. I truly believe
Where is it?
specific feelings, true feelings, have no limitations or no barriers.
It's an amazing song, but not that we want to watch or listen to now. Sorry about that. Let me just edit that out now because it'll make life easier later.
Andrew, you...
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Whoops, I'll mute that. Mute that out of the way.
in a club and have never been an area director, given a resource which asked you to think in advance
I don't
about...
believe...
Okay, so that's where it came in. So
were you ever asked to, given a resource which...
So I'll take you back, Paul, to wherever you... Yeah. So this is your last statement?
An area director at one stage in your life.
Right, you've asked Andrew, were you ever an...
Andrew, you have been an
I'll
area
start off with
director.
Andrew.
I'll
Okay.
start off with the word Andrew.
That's fine. Yeah, makes sense.
Count me in.
Yeah, will do. Will do. 3, 2, 1, go.
Andrew, were you ever expected or given a resource with which to think through your role before you took up the role of area director?
Paul, it seems to me that there was a handbook, and I'm going back sometime because I was an area director in about 2011, 2012. It seems to me there was a handbook. I was particularly fortunate in that I was part of a very supportive division council where we all reached out to each other. I'm interested to hear what you're saying about these new resources and the efforts that are being made to improve the quality of training for our district officers. I think that's a capital thing. I think that's a really fantastic thing.
Well, I know, for example, that one day training is given twice a year to district officers. The supporting documents that I've just described prepare area directors for a training experience, a learning experience, which is tailored for them, not necessarily tailored for division directors. So it suggests that there is thinking abroad, which suggests that some training be done for area directors. Who do you think ought to be the person who trains the area directors?
In the sense that the area director is really the listening ear and the feedback and support of the club presidents within the clubs within their area. So the next stage up would mean that it would be possibly the division director who guided the training for the area directors and then onwards up the chain. That's the logical sequence for me. That would be a logical sequence in the training. However, I think there is a place within the district team, within the top of your district team, there is a place for someone to have an overall view and to give overall guidance on that training. I do think there's a place for that.
Well, we live in an era where learning is more and more important in order to face the variety of challenges that is happening. Not just the challenges within the organization, but the challenges to become better known in the wider society. So we're certainly heading into an interesting era.
Yes, I think we are. I would agree with that. But I think that area director is a very busy role. Goodness me, those was, I remember when we did ours. If we hadn't have had the division council where we all supported each other, we would say, something's going on in one of my clubs this evening. I've got a professional thing going on and I can't quite make it. Can you do it? And we would all help each other out. That kind of support network that the division council can be to the area governors and the area governors or area directors, in their turn, offering that kind of support to their club presidents, who then take that down the line into their officer teams.
Of course, if an area director has 3 assistants, as indeed they're urged to have in the official documentation of Toastmasters International, there will be a team of 4 in each area. But we haven't got time, Andrew, to address that issue. But that's one of the things I learned when I was an area director, that I was very, very silly. I didn't have any assistant area directors. And that is another story for another day.
And on that note, we have to bring this section to a close, or this episode to a close. Thank you very much, Andrew. I hope you'll stay with us for the next part of the show, when Paul will be grilling you some more with some more general questions about Toastmasters. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. Right, that went way, way over.
Well, lovely, yeah.
Because nobody pays attention.
I actually had an assistant area governor at one point. Unfortunately, he got himself into a bit of bother and he ended up in hospital for a long while. But I did have one. But I was probably at that time within that particular London division. I don't think anyone else had an assistant. It was something there. There was a line about you could have an assistant in one of the pamphlets, but it wasn't quite the same as now. It didn't always exist.
If you look at the district leadership handbook, it's very clear that area director ought to have.
Yeah, it was never brought up in the training.
It isn't done because some people don't refrain and don't, and you have area directors saying, oh God, I got to visit 5 clubs. In fact, you really only have to visit about 2 at the most. And you could actually divide the assistants into, okay, your job is to support that one club. Your job is to support that one club. Your job is to support that one club, and I'll do 2. End of story.
Yeah.
Or else you can have, your job as area director is to set up new clubs. Don't want you to go near any of the existing clubs. I want you to set up new clubs. And they become, in effect, a club growth director. Or another area director can be, look, you're the person who leads on education or public relations. But it's, people are sloppy and, unaware that all this advice is given centrally and they just don't read it.
Yeah,
honestly, these things evolve over time. The edition of handbook, I don't know what the latest handbook says. I haven't seen anything like that for years. I'm just going on what we had when I was set up in the role, and what we had when I found a line somewhere about there being the possibility of having an assistant, and I had someone who came to me who was looking to be an area governor, area director the following year.
Yes.
And so I said, great, come and work alongside me. And that's how it happened.
When I was area director, we had in the training, it was never mentioned that I can remember.
No one ever mentioned it.
And I never knew about it. And I, to be honest with you, I didn't read the manual until I was 75% through the job.
No one ever mentioned it.
It's been the talk show for talkers that has examined these issues more thoroughly than any other group of people that I know. By the way, one little devious thing, Andrew and Moira, that an area director can do. An area director can appoint 3 assistants. And when it comes to electing the area director for the following year, the 3 assistants have a vote on the area council, as does the existing area director. So there are actually 4 votes at the disposal, we'll say, of the current area director, who is thereby enabled to secure succession planning.
That's a very good point.
That is, again, I keep having people saying, oh, no, I don't, they don't know that. And it's a really, who has voting rights at area council meetings?
Yeah,
honestly, I certainly wouldn't have known that. Nobody explained it to me. And I was part of District 71 when I did it, because we all were.
I'm a nerdy old...
Jim Hegarty was out. Jim Hegarty was our man.
I'm a nerdy old guy who reads all these documents, Andrew. I can be a terrible bore about... No,
it's important. It's important to look and see. But I'm quite sure that we didn't have that information at our disposal when we did it.
Yeah.
Because I know there was I can remember reading a document which I think was the handbook at the time. But again, it depends on editions. I've no doubt they've put things in and taken things out and changed everything. So, as I say, I've not seen the new one. I don't know. But I do feel that, yes, it's good to have an assistant, maybe 2. But when I was doing it, the thing is that your clubs really expected to see you, because you were theirs for the year. And they really had that expectation. And I certainly wouldn't have wanted to let them down on that expectation. So I certainly went to my clubs a lot more than twice a year. And also I organised events for them. We had big joint events with my area. Now, the sad thing is the following year, because they had to realign the areas, of course, me having drawn everyone nicely together into collective projects, the areas were all split up again.
But you see, the other thing is for an area director to have 3 assistants, that's an area director in a mentoring role with 3 assistants. So there's management development for the useful stuff that people might have in their jobs outside, supervision and development of the assistants, allocation of responsibilities according to ability and willingness to do it. So it is, and the other thing that's never mentioned and was never mentioned to me, I never heard it until halfway through last year in District 71, was the idea that the area director was in fact a district officer. That means that the area director had a responsibility for the implementation, using servant leadership skills, of district policies.
Oh yes, I would have expected that. I'm sure we had that.
Well, most of the big point that was made at one stage during the year was, what is the responsibility of the district? And the district's number 1 responsibility is to grow clubs and members and to support the existing clubs. But the allocation of time, I think, was about 90% in favor of supporting the existing clubs and about 10% in favor of growing new clubs.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's true even a few years ago. That's true. Yeah. The focus was very much from our division. The focus was very much on you supporting the presidents of the clubs that you were allocated to, and being available for the specific events, attending meetings, and just going along and helping in whatever way you could, in whatever capacity you could. Then we also had, but then we organised the officer training. We organised that.
Yes.
From the division,
and that
with the area governors or directors, we organised that. So we all had our tasks to do within those training sessions. We all set aside the time to do those training sessions because we always had to have 3 or 4 to capture all the officers. I know that there was this silly thing in the list saying that you could be maybe 4. I have 4 officers trained and that would count for your DCP. I always sent all my officers to training in both my clubs.
And did they all
full
go?
turnout both times?
They all went?
Yes.
I never managed to get all to go ever.
Yes,
2 clubs.
they didn't all go on the same evening, but because in London we did several evenings, they would go to one of those, and I would announce it. We got the dates out very early. I announced it to people. I said, which of these sessions will you be attending? I never had a problem with my officers going to training because, in both my clubs, I said it was capital. One, of course, of my clubs was Excalibur, which was advanced. So some of them had already served in other clubs. But at Berkeley, I had a young team at Berkeley, and I said to them, look, we need to go, and it's important for our club that we go to officer training, that we get the best tools that we can to strengthen the club, and that we go and hear what's said. And I'd like everybody to be there, please. And these are the dates. And I never had any questions about it. Never.
Well, I wish that was the case all over the place, but
I did have one. I had one issue in my year, which I will share with you as we're off the record now, aren't we?
Moira, are we still on YouTube?
Of course we are, because we still have one more segment to record.
Yeah. So Andrew better not share it.
I won't.
Yeah. We can talk off air sometime.
Yes, we can.
Look, do you want to leave, or do you? This is just permission.
I've checked my phone and I haven't got anyone panicking. So as long as I've not got anyone panicking, we can carry on.
Okay,
Oh,
but
great.
it's only maximum 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it then. I'm getting a bit of echo from somebody. Or I was.
Not from me.
No, it's gone
Is it
now.
from me?
It's gone now.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
May I just phone? I'll turn my phone off again, just in case.
Yeah,
there's
sure.
something. There we are.
Okay. Hello, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. My name is Moira O'Brien and I'm delighted to welcome you once again to the talk show for talkers here on irishtalkers.com. Our email address, if you get in touch with us, is info@irishtalkers.com. You can find us on Facebook, where you can leave a message at the talk show for talkers. And we do like to hear from you, because we do consider your feedback to be evaluations. We also publish the Public Speaking Weekly on our website, irishtalkers.com. And you're welcome to have a look at that. It's a roundup of links from the internet, all about Toastmasters, confidence, leadership, etc., etc., etc. Right, what do we have for you today? Well, we have a packed program, of course. We'll have a word of the week and a thought for the week, as always, in this part of the show. In part 2, we have an interview with a distinguished Toastmaster. Looking forward to that. In part 3, Paul will be talking about some new aspects of training for area directors. And in part 4, we'll be grilling our guest a little bit more about, well, it could be about how many clubs that he belongs to. So let's get the show off the ground, and I'm going to bring you a quotation. And this is where I paused, because I had all this all keyed up and ready to go, and I lost it, of course. So I have to find my quote again. And
Moira.
Yep.
Moira, just to interrupt you a second. You haven't introduced me at all.
Oh, gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. There we are. That's what happens when you go off script. I'll stick that in somewhere. A quotation. So let's get the show right. Okay. So I'll stick it in there and I can move it later on. Intro Paul. But let me find my quote first of all. Here we are, Helen Blanchard. God bless her. Right. I'm joined this week by the ever-present, that's another P, a slightly different P this week. We always try, listeners, to get alliteration, and one runs out of suitable Ps. I think we had, no, we haven't had pandemic, Paul. That would be a bad one, wouldn't it? What can we think of this week that would... perceptive Paul. I like that. Perceptive Paul Omani. Paul, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. And listeners, thank you very much for being here for us again this week. I hope you're going to enjoy the podcast.
Okay, I'm stopping it there because I'm going to cut and paste that and put it elsewhere. If I can persuade it to select. Okay. And that's going to go in once again to the Talk Show for Talkers. At the Talk Show for Talkers. And we do feedback to be evaluation. Public speaking weekly on our website, irishtalkers.com. I do go on, didn't I? And you're welcome to have... Right. Okay, it goes in there. Eccellente. So let's dive in and look at our quotation for this week. And it's a quote from Helen Blanchard. Now, if you don't know, Helen Blanchard was the very first female, or officially the very first female member of Toastmasters. Of course, there were some unofficial female members for quite a few years, but they were hidden from Toastmasters International. Anyway, Helen said, if you get out of Toastmasters all you can get out of Toastmasters, you will never get out of Toastmasters. If you get out of Toastmasters all that you can get out of Toastmasters, you will never get out of Toastmasters. Paul, your thoughts?
I think it's a fair bet that an awful lot of people who join Toastmasters want to become better communicators. There's a whole range of situations in which they feel that they have the potential to be more effective at getting their message across, more effective at holding the attention of other people, and more effective of achieving whatever purpose they have in speaking. And if you are getting practice in a Toastmasters club, skills practice in a Toastmasters club, and you're also getting some valuable feedback on how well you're doing, what we call evaluations, how likely are you to leave? So if the practice continues to be relevant to your life outside Toastmasters, and the feedback is helping you to become more effective in society, there's a very strong probability that you will stay. And then, of course, when you throw in the fact that you've joined an organization in which everybody shares 4 values, which means that people are generally fairly nice and friendly, integrity, respect, service, and excellence, well, they're pretty attractive values. Who wouldn't want to hang out with people who have those values? I think Helen Blanchard is correct, really.
I think so too. I think it's a bit more than that, because the whole ethos of Toastmasters, I think, draws you in. And the fact is that you can never actually get in everything out of Toastmasters, because there is always something new to learn. And I think the reason why you never get out of Toastmasters is because there is always something new to learn. It may be just going to a different club or joining a different club and learning from different people. Or it may be that you just have not developed your speaking or your leadership skills as far as you are capable of doing it. But even if you have, even if you've gone as far as you think you can go, there is always more that you can do. So you never stop learning, in my opinion. Okay, Paul, I believe that you have a word for the week. I was not so clever this week in giving a nice, simple transition to it as I like to do, because I couldn't think of a way of protruding that word into the conversation.
Well, let me see if I can help. First of all, there are a number of things that stick out in my mind that would be on the minds of the listeners. So how on earth can we identify the things that stick out? In other words, the things that protrude into our attention, or even stick out from all the books that you have on your shelves. One book protrudes. In other words, sticks out. We all know the word stick out, but indeed, if you want to spice up your language, how about using the word protruding? Now, let me spell it for you. Protruding. Protruding. And it is from Latin and old words, for example. It first came into the English language. Moira, I'm going to ask you the same question. In fact, when would you say the word protrude came into English?
I'm
How
going
about
to
that?
guess at 1587.
1587. Well, that's a pretty good guess. 1620, not long before the English Civil War. So there we are, protruding, protrude. And it's a word that will enrich your language. So if you're going to be making a serious point, you can talk about what has stuck out in the dress that somebody has. You have a red carnation protruding from your buttonhole, would be an example. Or even you might say that you have a pink protrusion on your high heel shoes.
Well, Paul, I actually put it this way, that I have a pink protrusion on my face, being blessed with a nasal protrusion of some considerable, proportions. So that's another little.
There's an issue, of course, here about what other words could substitute for protruding. And project, overhang, stick out, obviously, stand out. These are words which would be synonyms for protrude. So you might want to say that something is projecting out from a central point. And you also might want to say that something is protruding from a fixed vantage point. So there we are. That's it, listeners. A word to consider using during this week. If you want to protrude from your company, stand out from your company, that would be that'll help the English language to develop, because it's usually we talk about our tails protruding from our cat or from our dog, or a mouse protruding from underneath the dresser.
I never thought, Paul, of using the word protrusion or protruding to be a standing out from the crowd type of word, but there's absolutely no reason why not. So you can protrude yourself in your Toastmasters Club by being an outstanding speaker.
Yes, there we are. English is a language which is always evolving, And I haven't come across a description that what you want to do as a speaker is protrude out from the crowd. But you
I
want to
can't see why
certainly
not.
stick out from the crowd. So
Yeah.
there we are. Listeners, that's all I want to bring you this week about the word protrude.
Thank you, Paul. And that brings us to a nice conclusion to this episode. And we'll ask you to come back tomorrow at the same time when we will be interviewing a distinguished Toastmaster who happens to be a member of many clubs. We'll see you then. Okay, that's it. That's the whole show.
Since Andrew is a master grammarian, or one of the strongest grammarians that I have come across in Toastmasters, or let me put it another way, I haven't come across a stronger grammarian.
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed a discussion about the word protruding with you, Andrew.
Well, I would love to have said something, but I wasn't quite sure whether I should intervene there.
Well, you were quite right, Andrew,
You
because
did the right thing.
yeah,
'cause,
the tradition of the show is that the guest is kept in secret, and Ted actually makes a point of saying, "I'm not going to tell you anything about this speaker, but he'll be. Oh, and I've just given away his gender." Yeah, he does that every week. However, so yeah, we don't introduce the speaker, the guest, until section 2.
The general context that we hear for protruding is something that sticks out in an invasive manner.
Yeah,
It's going beyond. It's sticking out, going beyond. So we say it's protruding. Yeah.
No, that's intruding.
I don't see why we can't use it in other ways. And yes, language is always evolving.
But protruding and intruding are not the same.
Are not the same
word.
thing.
And intruding is the word, the version where it is intruding.
Intrusive.
Intrusive. Thank you.
But the idea of overhanging, protruding, it's overhanging in a way.
Yeah.
In a way that invades.
An overhanging branch which deserves to be cut down.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So it
yeah,
protrudes,
yeah.
doesn't it? It
Yeah.
protrudes.
Yeah.
But we don't tend to hear the word used in those other contexts that you were discussing so much. So I think that was a good discussion you had.
Yeah.
So whereas it was once a descriptive word, it's gradually becoming a judgmental word.
Yeah. Yeah.
An unsatisfactory extension of an object beyond into a space in which it feels an intrusion.
Yes.
Indeed. Now, I have to just call out to our viewer, Venice Rowe, who's been with us for some, if not all, of this show. You're very welcome, Venice, and good to see you again. We'll see you hopefully next week. But I think we're going to close down this.
I saw Venice Rowe at Division H celebration during the last weekend. So Venice, if you you were spoken of very highly there, and I pretty certain I heard you speak even. So there we are.
And with that, we'll bring the YouTube version of this show to a close.